Welcome to Bonehead Weekly, and today we are honored not only with our returning champion, Mick Strawn, but it's about time that I get somebody I've wanted on this show for the last couple of years. Nick Benson, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you at Scarefest. Why the fuck that hammer, Mick? If you're listening to us,
it's you know what's funny about that hammer is it's a little short in the handle.
It is a little short in the handle.
That is definitely Mick's hammer. He's a little short in the handle.
This is what getting old is like. This is as much hammer as I can handle right now.
He's right. Why is okay, other than genetics, why is that handle so short?
You know what? I have no idea. It used to be a full hammer. It used to be a full hammer. I have no idea. It's not in the best.
Mick used to play with a full deck too.
I was gonna say,
you know what getting old is like this is like I still have a construction staple gun out in my garage.
Yeah,
that is like
it's only this big now.
Yes.
Because he's using them all like a hammer.
Just my hammers are getting shorter. No, it's like you go out to pick it up and it weighs like 25 pounds, right? You know, and you go, well, that's what I used when I was a kid. And then if somebody were to give me a modern one, I like went to Home Depot and I was just looking at the modern ones, and you reach out to grab it and it floats up in the air. It slowly comes back down to the ground and settles nicely into your hand, and you go, yeah, I'm fucking old.
And with that, this has been Bonehead Weekly. Thank you all so much. Mick has a short hammer. Now, hey, I haven't told the other two. We had something planned for our Thanksgiving episode, but boys, this sort of come out Thanksgiving weekend, right? This one here, this is the one we should be.
I mean, I always make sure that our Thanksgiving episode involves some sort of tool. So I think we've met the requirement. I think we're good. This obviously.
And a turkey.
Hey, wait.
Well, mix a jive turkey so it works.
Are you calling me a tool? Wow, you know what?
Not in so many words.
Hey, well, it's good to hear that I'm not the only turkey in the room.
Yeah, well, I hope we all get stuffed. Nick Benson, I want to turn my attention to you for a second because I have asked this question of Mick, and he's never really given me a great answer. But what bit you? Why did you go to Hollywood to live your dream and work in the movies? What was the movie? What was it? Why were you nerdy when you were a kid?
Well, that's actually a pretty broad question because I was a monster kid for years. My mother worked for Universal, and I had access to that stuff long before I got into it.
What did your mom do at Universal?
She was an executive actually in charge of moving all of the production onto the lot, giving them their offices and, setting all the production up.
That's an interesting job. It's a good gig.
Yeah, it was cool. She'd give me her golf cart. I had carte blanche on the lot. I'd steal her golf cart and just go wherever the hell I wanted.
So that's how you got in. So you weren't necessarily into movies as much as you were just basically dropped into movies.
Well, with the effects side of it, I kind of fell into that. That was more accidental than on purpose. It was, it was late 1986 or 7. I think 87, summer of 87. I moved in with this guy named Sean Brennan. Hang on, my light's freaking out here. Let me fix my light.
Okay, I thought I was having a stroke.
Yeah, it looks like it's having a stroke. That's for sure. A stroke. So in 87, I was in a band with this guy, and his roommates were Kevin Brennan and Steve Johnson.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a place to live, and he happened to have an extra room. And I was not aware of who the roommates were at all. I was just like, oh, cool, place to live in Burbank. I'm going.
Yeah.
So, I move in, and obviously enamored by who the roommates were. Talked to Steve a lot. I wanted to do really theatrical things with the band. And started, bouncing ideas off of him, and just, I bugged him long enough where he just said, well, why don't you just come make rubber monsters? Forget about the music and come make rubber monsters. So that's what I did.
And the rest is history. Now, before we move on to this, I'm curious. Now, you're in your mom's golf cart going all over that Universal backlot.
Mm-hmm.
What movies or shows do you remember distinctly sneaking on, watching, being made that just left an impact? There's got to be.
I actually didn't give a shit about the productions going on. I wanted to go to Alfred Hitchcock's office. I wanted to go to the Munster House. I wanted to go, run across the guys, putting the makeup on to walk around the park. That was more interesting to me than the productions. I didn't really pay attention to the productions.
Well, did you sneak into Hitchcock's office?
No, I didn't have to. I got in there. My mom was moving some people in there one time, and I got to go in there, and it was pretty cool.
You have to understand that actually working in the movies, there is no respect to the history whatsoever. I mean, absolutely not. You would just like being in the prop houses and stuff, and just going to and literally being able to rent. I rented most of the stuff from Frankenstein's monster, right? That was still at Universal.
Oh yeah.
Gathering dust in the corners. You have to understand it's just there and you just use it.
All that stuff is just property. They just use it.
It's just shit. Yeah.
You mean a castle? There's one that happens to be here since 1947.
That's right. That's exactly what it's like. It's the fucking weirdest thing. It really is.
When Nick just mentioned that he was trying to get onto Mockingbird Lane to see the Munsters house, I'm like, oh God, tell me that story.
It was easy. It's I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's
I've been to Warner.
I've been to the
Warner
back
Brothers
lot.
Yeah, I've been to the Warner Brothers lot, and I was like, I mean, I'm in my I was late 30s, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, I know where that church is. I know what movie that church was in. That's the church.
It had so much more impact when it was still the Munsters house. Now it's just and it's ugly now.
Yeah, and the thing is all this shit gets changed all the time, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it just.
Yeah, now it's Wisteria Lane from the fucking whatever that. Desperate Housewives
Desperate
or whatever.
Housewives.
Yeah. And we change stuff all the time, and it's really it's so weird because you don't, once you're on the lot for a couple of times, you don't even think. I remember when I used to go to the lot all the time, and every motherfucking nook and cranny. You would go to Universal in particular. You would go to Universal, and every nook and cranny would have a car that was either a kit car or it was either a
jammed
kit
in
car.
a corner.
What was the other one? Or it was a General Lee, right? They were everywhere.
Yeah,
there were guys doing bad Bondo jobs in every corner of it, and especially when the two of them were running concurrently together. I mean, those cars if there was a parking spot that was left open for about 10 minutes, there'd be a General Lee there.
Yeah. I also, and to add to that, like I'll give you a little example of that. I would drive by, there was a big Quonset hut that they kept a lot of stuff in. And right outside, that's a dirt lot that's full of cars. And I remember driving by it several times, and the car from the movie The Car was parked out there. I bugged my mother for probably 2 or 3 years that I wanted that car. She's like, why do you want a car that's supposed to be demon possessed? I'm like, because it'd be awesome.
Because
why wouldn't you? Because I want to drive it to school. That's why.
Because you just answered your question when you asked the question.
There were just two.
Because no one at school will fuck with me. That's why.
It's true. It's so true.
Well, so Mick has talked about this before, right, Mick? And I'm curious because Mick's talked about all the shit that you've just thrown out over the years. I mean, you'd finished Nightmare.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Nightmare. And just the dump.
I'll tell you what, if either one of us, I'm sure even Mick will attest to this, if either one of us had a clue what that shit was worth today, we would have so really much of that stuff around.
Because you don't know what it's like to be in the middle of all that. I mean,
a nightmare.
Because yesterday's shit is yesterday's shit, I mean, it's just, It's just utterly. In fact, you have to understand that all that stuff is
Takes
a
up real
problem.
estate.
It's a problem because you begin to think this way. You begin to think that that's a square foot that I could put something
That's right, that you can use,
that I'm working on now on.
Well, that was a thing. Like we would go through like at the end of a show
and it costs
and
money.
get ready for the next one, and we'd have all these molds on a shelf, you know, and it was like, if they don't come pick them up, we destroy them and throw them in the trash.
See, and the other thing is this: you would think that these days you could set them on the street and they would be gone, right? I mean, but back then in LA,
nobody cared,
and like it's like as a set decorator, right? Mm-hmm. You couldn't even call the Salvation Army and have them take stuff off of a set because they wouldn't come. They would say, "No way, we're pickier than that," and it's just too much. It's too much stuff. It just becomes shit. This is why I am like kind of an anti-collector.
Yes,
it's just that years and years and years of dealing with shit and trying to get rid of it still in my mind. And I've told you this before. Still in my mind, I can see that clawed locker. For Nightmare just walking by.
So what you're telling me, Mick, is the Salvation Army. You would call them up and they say, "Well, we want to help the poor, but not that much."
That's they were overwhelmed. First of all, you would have to take it to them. And here was the catch, though. You'd have to take it to them, and then they would come out and go through it, and say, "Well, we'll take this and that and that." And the process of them going through it would cost you money.
Yeah,
because otherwise you could just take it to the dump and you could pay, $20 a ton and it was gone. And there are days that you could go to the dump, that you could go to like one of the dumps up in the valley, and there would just be set after set after set after set in a row. Just
I just picture your argument with the Salvation Army. What do you mean you don't want this bucket of fake severed arm?
Right, but
think about how the kids could
Dirk
play
Diggler's
with
dong.
Dirk Diggler's dong.
Hey,
now,
there's anybody here that can wear that.
Yeah, I say in all fairness, I'm pretty sure in the right place, somewhere near LA, you could have sold that particular item.
Probably.
Well, yeah. But the place that you would sell it, they'd have about 6 of them already.
Yeah. Those guys were all in the valley and they had warehouses full of shit for making porn.
Well, and you got to think too, the people that would have bought that, they have people on call that don't need that accessory.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It was the valley. It was the valley too, Yeah.
Well, also too, like you're talking about getting rid of things. I mean, the movie memorabilia just was not really a huge thing back then, if I'm remembering correctly. I mean, it was just kind of
not in LA. I mean, I would imagine over there.
I was just gonna say that.
In LA, it's like it's just on to the next.
Right. It's on to
moving on to the next show, moving on to the next film. Just get rid of this shit, get it out of here. It's you don't need to take it up.
And it's that I'm telling you, it was that way all the way up until 2013. I mean, right. I didn't even know. I literally had people get a hold. When I first got onto Facebook in around 2013. I think I was on in 2009, but I hadn't even looked at the fucking thing until 2013 or 2014. And I was like, wait a minute. What are you talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 3 for? That was done. We did that. Yeah. 20, 25 years ago,
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a story. I was talking to Kevin Reeder recently, and that's a guy I used to work with a lot. Kevin did all the suits for the movie Leviathan for Stan Winston.
Yeah.
Big dive suits.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like those are amazing.
Yeah. He built all those and he built all of them at his own shop because Stan did not want them in his shop. They were too big. So Kevin was like, he called Stan when they were done filming. He's like, "Do you want these suits or what do you want to do?" And he's like, "I got to get them out of my shop." And Stan was like, "I don't want them. They're too fucking big. I don't want nothing to do with them." So Kevin hacked them all up with a sawzall, and they were thrown in a dumpster.
Yeah, it's really funny. I was talking to R.A. Milhoff the other day, the Leatherface from Leatherface, right? Yeah, from Leatherface, you know.
Yeah, the one you worked on.
Yeah, the Leatherface guy from Leatherface.
Yeah,
right, exactly. And he was telling the same story.
Oh, you mean Leatherface from A River Runs Through It?
Yeah.
No, from Driving
No,
Crazy.
the other one.
Sorry.
So he says he's going, yeah, no, you are complete assholes to each other. So he's for years I've said, you know, that I went down and I changed the mask, and that in order to get into K&B's shop, they had all the buffalo from
oh God, I did those too. Yeah.
Yeah, all the buffalo for Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, Dances with Wolves. Those were my big goddamn molds.
And I got to tell you, the thing is these fucking buffalo were as you drove up to the shop. Tell me that as you drove up to the shop, anywhere that anybody had moved their car, it just stacked it full of buffalo.
More buffalo. I mean, more buffalo.
You went. So you had to weave in. So I'm going into the office, and literally, as you open the door to the shop, right? It's just nothing but buffalo asses in your face, right? And you had to like kind of like go between them, and then there's a table kind of in the middle of the shop, and it literally looked like the buffalo were sitting around it. We're having a meeting.
So when you came into the shop, is that how they got the idea for that Ace Ventura gag?
Exactly. Oh, same thing.
Oh, look, Mick's coming out of his ass.
Oh, look, Mick's coming out of his ass. So when I got in there, I changed the mask and blah blah blah, and literally by cutting it apart and then taking scissors and cutting anything that I didn't like out of it and then dropping it back down here and saying, hey, sew that fucker back together. I don't want to see the stitches done in the molds, you idiots. So I've always told that story, and R.A. Milhoff and I are hanging out, and he started to tell the story about that. He had to go in and get the mold, a fitting for the mold for the work that they did on his face. And he was saying, yeah. And I'm not kidding. For some reason, when I got there, you could hardly even get through all the buffalo that were all around. And I go, yeah, I know.
He's a big guy too, so it'd be really hard for him to get through that shit.
It would have been a pain in the ass, I have to tell you.
So Nick, were you working on the buffalo mold? We almost said we're the buffalo robes. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually molded and cast a lot of those.
Let me tell you something about makeup effects people.
Yeah.
Mechanical effects people hate each other. Actually, they hate everybody. Actually, they hate their own parents too. That's mechanical, but that's the guys who blow things up and the guys who like do rain and shit like that. And the direct opposite of that.
I hope Andre's not watching this.
Fuck Andre. I gave him his start. Anyway. Hey, I can say bad things about Andre, damn it. So the direct opposite of that is the guys who work in makeup effects, because they are actually all the same person. It's just,
we all share a brain, just one. We pass it around. They do
it's actually just a brain cell. and
so much respect for you.
I was gonna say when one of them drops it, it's called night. So anyway, so they all get along with each other, and so they all know each other, right? And production designers, we just we outflounce each other. That's all. You know, we don't even recognize that there are other production designers.
Well, I'm curious, Nick, do you agree with Mick on that most makeup effects people like one another and get along?
I can't think that far out because I only have one brain cell apparently. I can't answer that.
Hey, I messaged you.
You want to borrow one?
I said Sunday. I said, you're cool. He goes, Mick's coming. I was like,
oh no, make no mistake. No, make no mistake. Mick will pay. We're at a lot of shows together. You know, We spend a little time together. So
yeah, we
make
do.
No mistake. He will pay.
Well, this was behind your back.
He will
Nick.
pay for that remark.
Yes. Well, you know.
Nick and I were messaging, and I was like, "Are you sure about Mick?" He goes, "Yeah, I thought that was the plan." I was like, "Okay, are you sure?" And then
Nick and my banter always makes for good show.
Yeah. I am pleasantly entertained. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I don't need to do anything. Just let you two go. So I know you've told the story many times. Go ahead.
My internet connection is unstable.
So, well, and
just like everything else,
your hammer's a little short. Your internet connection's unstable. Your nail gun's about that big. So what else have we got?
But it weighs a lot.
By the way, Mick, how do you feel that all four of us chimed in on that comment at the exact same time?
That's yeah. You know what it's like to be the leader of the pack? Everybody's aiming at you all the fucking time. Let me tell you.
Hey, Nick, if it makes you feel, I mean, I'm telling you, he gets when he's at Scarefest the last 2 years, we both get it. Are you sure he's not your uncle? Is that your son?
Oh yeah, no, really, we actually do. They not only do they think that we're related. Either I'm your older brother, or I'm your dad. Right? Like,
I've heard all three. I've heard all.
Fucked up.
I don't
That's
know.
all right.
I feel
Look,
more
if you're
sorry
going to be
for.
an asshole, you better be the whole ass. Because why do anything half-assed?
Well, that's true. So, by the way, Mick, I forgot to tell you that picture I posted of you and I in the truck when I had to go pick your ass up at Breakview because of something. Who was the concert? I have no idea. I've forgotten. It was a country act. It doesn't matter. It was several people.
Go ahead.
Several people messaged me going, "Oh my God, you do look so much like your dad."
I saw, yeah.
I think it was Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, Carrie. Yeah, it was very hard to get out of there that day.
It was. So, how did you two meet? How did you two meet? How did you Mick and Nick meet?
Well, we tried to figure that out for a little while. We knew it was on Nightmare 4, but we figured out it might have been a little earlier because my recollection is that I kind of stumbled into his junkyard while working on the blob. So
right. Yeah. So, you know, the thing is if you met me on a show, I had somebody do a imitation of me one time, and I got to see it from behind the curtain, and it was I'm not 100% sure if it was how do you say nice, but it was like this. It was like, oh no, look, I'm gonna do Mick, and he and then he walks off. I go, yeah, well, that's pretty much. It was fairly accurate, I have to say.
Yeah, there's a couple of people who do me at work, and I at first I got a little upset, and then I listen and I go, no, it's pretty dead on. I get it. So you don't remember, but you think it was on the blob?
Well, I think I was finishing on the blob, and I remember there's a guy named Bill Force that's a makeup effects artist, and he and I used to like kind of get into trouble together. So like when we were shooting, Nightmare, like he was going over to, they were shooting Roadhouse. What was it? Roadhouse across the way from us with Patrick Swayze. They were shooting Roadhouse, I think, at the same time.
Yeah.
And we just got fucking pizza every day, and they had fucking lobster over there. So Bill's like, hey, they got lobster over there. Let's go sneak over there. See if they notice us. So we did. We kept going over there and getting their craft service.
Where were you shooting?
But yeah, it's just stuff like that, like you're on one stage, you stumble onto another, and somebody else is shooting something else.
You'll be shooting in a warehouse or on a location, and somebody else, a whole other crew, will be like 2 blocks down. And
shooting the blob. I think we were sharing a facility, and Mick was a couple stages over from where we were, and I was just in between doing some things and getting nosy as to what was around, and popped into his junkyard stage, and I was like, "What's this?"
And I always remembered him from Nightmare on Street 4 when we were on the stage, which would have been later on, because of his because you could tell where he was no matter what. Because he had this like
I still do.
but he actually sprayed it out all the time when he was on stage. It was full full 16 inches high, always in some outrageous color. And you would walk out, I'd walk out of my office and go, boom. I would wonder where the makeup effects people that were shooting that day, and I'd go
right there.
Right there.
Which begs the question, how the hell did you sneak on the Roadhouse's set and eat their lobster with that hairdo?
Yeah, it was pretty easy.
Wait a minute.
They probably thought I was an extra.
I was going to say, you think he's the only eclectic looking one?
Yeah.
No, what it is they probably thought he's the guy that Patrick Swayze kicks his ass to get to the bad guy.
Stunt double.
And the funniest thing was,
Good
it's like
point.
the guy I was sneaking over there with was almost a dead ringer for George Michael. So it's like George Michael and this punk rock guy just wandered onto the set. How did we get missed? I have no idea. Maybe they thought we were just extras or something.
Well, you've got me on the point. The Blob remake is actually one of those movies that I feel never really gets enough credit. But I've heard crazy stories about Chuck Russell. Do you got one?
I don't have any crazy stories about Chuck Russell. Both Mick and I are very vocal about how we feel about Chuck Russell.
Oh, I've heard Mick talk a little bit about him before. I was hoping you would talk about it.
I'll tell you what, he's not an easy director to work for. He's good at what he does. I don't know if it's because he motivates all of the people working for him to do what he wants, but to me, he just seems very indecisive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. He can be very difficult.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's about to tell me no. All right. Well, Mick.
Yeah, I don't want to get into specifics because Chuck's older, people change. But
well, he got
as far as working for him, Mick and I don't have any necessarily have any love for him.
That's a no love at all. I have to tell you, he did get back. He got back on Facebook for a while. I mean, it happened for about 3 months, and I think that with him,
yeah,
he got such a huge flood of negative comments that he couldn't take it, and then he jumped back off again.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. But I mean, you couldn't despise him any more than a certain director of Blade.
True enough. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But the thing is, I like to think of it this way, though. The director of Blade was British, and not only was he British, he was aristocratically British.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give him a pass because he didn't go through what I call the Texas test.
Yeah.
In other words, he didn't grow up in an area they didn't have gun laws, and so therefore he actually did get a chance to grow up and be a complete asshole, right? As opposed to getting the living shit kicked out of him.
You've told me that story before about it. They never would have made it out of Texas.
Never would have made it out of Texas. I always thought that would be a great title for a book. Never would have made it out of Texas.
I think it'd be a great title for your next book.
And it's just a list of names.
Just a list of names.
That's all the book is. It's a list.
And by the way, you all should probably go ahead and just co-author this book together, and that way you can talk about all the different people. And it's like, if you got left out of this book, it means you could have made it through Texas, and we worked with you and don't hate you.
That's right.
Or you made literally no impression on us whatsoever.
Or no impression.
Absolutely. I can't remember what it was, but the other day I was noticing how as I've gotten older and how we in the business who spent any time in it at all, as you get older, you noticed how much easier the game of 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon gets.
Oh my God. I think that's part of just life, even outside the business, just being alive, the older. And what age is it that you get that? Oh, look, he's still breathing. Clap. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Sometime post.
Well, you how many people recently have you heard that have died and you went, well, oh, it's really sad that they died, but they were still alive?
They were still alive. Or a few of them that are your age, or and I mean that by my age, or are younger, and you start going, oh.
The ever classic line of, oh, somebody died in their 80s. Oh, how'd they die? They were jumping a Harley over a kid. No, they were 80-some years old. They were 80-some years old.
Right. Yeah.
They're Harley jump. My daughter said that everybody, she said she just threw this out when we were I was dropping her off at UCLA, and she goes on the way, she goes, yeah, it's really weird, everybody in the family thinks that you're going to go up in flames or something, you're going to die in a huge car wreck or something like that. And she says, but you know what? That's not what's going to happen. You're going to die in your sleep. And I go, well, what the hell do you mean I'm going to die in my sleep? And she goes, well, because
I'm going to kill you.
No, she goes, because the one thing that I know about you is you never do what anybody thinks you're going to do. So like, oh, okay, I'll die in my sleep.
All right, Nick, since you won't tell me a Chuck Russell story, will you tell me a James Cameron story?
No.
Here. I've got a question I've got to ask.
Hold on now.
Wait.
I'll just incriminate myself in those guys' eyes. I don't, they're not easy to work with. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Well, buddy, you're not the only one. Do you know there's a reason why I jumped from Chuck Russell to James Cameron? I clearly knew,
because you're going through your list of assholes and picking your favorites. Is that
it? You've been picking your asshole, haven't you?
That's exactly. Joe's been picking his assholes.
Give me credit enough that you see that was.
A connection. Yes.
We've talked to several people that have had James Cameron.
One of these things is not like the other one.
About to tell, we've got several James Cameron stories, but even as low rent as we are, they're all after we push stop on the record and they go, all right, got a few minutes. Let me tell you, James Cameron.
There's one exception to that. Didn't we get one that was on air that would happen to be a certain, to Mick's earlier point, happened to be someone that worked on the mechanical side of things. And he talked about having to be a horse for James Cameron.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all that negative.
A man called horse.
Well, Beans is the man. Obviously, fucks horses. It's just a guy got screwed in the ass, right?
No, but he did get set on. Anyway, the point being, the question I wanted to ask is, Nick, as somebody that grew up in a certain time frame, I have to ask about your work as a producer on the Dare movie.
Why?
Because that was shoved down my throat for I don't know, when did Dare
that
start?
Was so short and it's just another project,
Yeah, that's what. But I mean, how do you go from making monsters? Well, I guess it's a different monster. But how do you go from one to being the supervising producer on really what was an anti-drug 30-minute message?
Yeah, it's it's 30. Was it 30 minutes?
I don't. 20 was it 20? I don't know.
I don't remember. Wasn't that? I don't remember it being very long, but it's just a thing with Matt Williams, the San Francisco Giants. That was after I had left LA. I'd moved up north, and I was doing just about anything I could get my hands on.
So you dared to do Dare.
I dared to do Dare.
Yeah, Mick, when are you going to do your anti-drug?
He lives it every day.
I was going to say, look at this.
No, he doesn't. I love the glasses, by the way. Are those new?
Look, you know what? I'm out on the street, obviously. I'm wearing throwaway dollar glasses.
Yeah.
I haven't shaved in ages, and I'm wearing a thrift store shirt in order to keep myself warm. What do you think?
I think you should
don't do whatever drugs Mick does. That's the message.
This is your brain on Mick.
Well, all right. I'm trying to get some stories out of you. So here,
got
the hammer bag. Hold on. So did you guys reconnect later when you started doing the convention circuit? Were you guys close for a while? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, I think it was 2015 or 16, right around the time Mick was starting to write his book and had Blake working with him. And I asked both Blake and Mick to come out to Vegas to us. I think it was called Sin City Halloween, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Sin City.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to induct Mick into the Hall of Horror here. There's a guy named Paul Casey that curates the Hall of Horror here. It's like a little Hall of Fame. And he inducted Mick, myself, and Blake all in the same year.
And you know who else was there? Oh, let's see.
The
No.
Chuck Russell.
No.
No.
Both of the Michael Myers stuntmen, the one that just died.
Oh,
he was there.
I forgot their names.
There's so many of them. They could just be dying for years and years and years. And
well, that one's a little slightly less complicated than the Friday the 13th ones, where he was the one that got the credit in the movie, but I was actually the guy that played him during the whole time, and that gets complicated through all those movies as well. If I've had a quarter for every time I've heard that and doing a panel,
I have thought to myself that the fact that there are so many horror films that have people in rubber masks around, and that there's so many people that have worn those masks, are the reason that you can have multiple horror cons going throughout America at any given time.
Yeah. Absolutely. A friend of ours, Todd Farmer, is a friend of the show, and Mick, I've tried to introduce you guys before. He's a screenwriter, and he actually regrets not putting himself, because he's also an actor, of not donning the mask, because he would do so many more conventions, because it's just nobody. And this is a problem I get into, because a lot of times I want to meet directors and writers and production designers and artists and special makeup, and they just sometimes fans, they literally could not care less about who wrote the screenplay. All right, silence.
I mean, I've been out. I have been out there trying to push to get other people that work in the films, out, get into the conventions and get around. And it's really hard.
It sucks. And because a lot of them have fantastic stories, like you guys have fantastic stories. And this is the thing that this is going to be episode 257, 258. It's been doing over 5 years. And that's on top of the convention work that we've done. But the one thing that I know over all this time is that a lot of actors and actresses, they may have some decent stories, but a lot of times they're in their fucking trailer when the movie is being made.
Yeah.
Right. And when the shit goes down and the people who are actually making
all the funny shit that goes down is all happening while they're in their trailer.
There's always so much more stuff going on in our world than their world. And that was the reason that I had to write that book, was just to give you a glimpse of what it's like behind it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Nick, you got a good story about Vincent Price and Dead Heat?
I do.
Oh shit! Here we go.
I do.
That's
one that doesn't come up very often either. So that's really cool that you asked me that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if Joe hadn't stepped on my feet, I was getting ready to say that.
I'm sorry,
well,
that's
probably one of the only times that I totally had to contain the fanboy, because being a kid growing up, seeing him on every single film that I loved, it was very surreal to be in an environment where he was coming in to get a life cast from us. And so this is gonna be like a couple stories combined into one, because it's all one continuous series of events. So where Steve Johnson and Todd Masters are sharing a shop at the time when we were doing Dead Heat. And I came in for the day, and I know we all knew that Vincent was going to come in that day for his life cast. And everybody was kind of geeked out. I mean, everybody really was. Everybody loves him. And And I expected a very different man than who came, because he's very, very established, very long film career. But we were all kind of making jokes though. The whole, it's all sunny out. It's nice, really nice day. In I believe it was Burbank or Sun Valley, somewhere in there, some in the Tri-Cities area. And so we're waiting for him to show up, just doing other stuff, and kind of joking around about, oh, well, watch, he'll pull up in a big black car. The skies are going to go dark. The lightning's going to start raining. All of this shit, all these kind of jokes, we're just slinging them around. And literally about 5 minutes before his car pulled into the driveway, it starts to rain. So we're like, oh,
which shit. It does out there all the time.
Oh shit. The car pulls in. I didn't really see what they were driving, but I remember his entourage around him bring him into the shop. And Steve's kind of like, everybody keep away from him, because I don't want everybody crowding him and, whatever. So everybody kind of minds their business, and he comes in and they're talking to him about what they're going to do. And he starts, meeting all the people around the shop. And, he kind of like, I didn't want to be that. I was still pretty new in the business. So I didn't want to like rush him and be like, oh, hey, I'm a fan. And I really wanted to meet him, but I just thought, oh, this isn't going to happen, because they're kind of keeping him away and they've got things to do, trying to be professional. But Vincent stops. He hadn't met everybody in the shop, and he literally stops, makes eye contact with me, and beelines towards me and extends his hand and shakes my hand, says, hi, I'm Vincent. And I just thought, what a nice man, because I'm in the back corner of the shop. He made his way to me. I didn't do any of that. And I didn't really have anything for him to sign, but I had this book with me that I was reading. And I just was like, would you sign that? And he signed this fucking book for me. But I couldn't believe what a nice man he was. And it was just, he was so welcoming and so like enamored of what we do. It was really pretty cool. And, like I said, it's like really hard to contain the fanboy. Because inside I was screaming like a little girl. But anyway, so kind of fast forward a little bit. We prep him, we sit him down, we get all the stuff ready to do this live cast. And I think I was getting all the bandages ready for the outside shell. And I remember, I think it was Todd, Steve, and I think Bill Forsh, and maybe Mike Smithson that were all doing his live cast. And I remember, and we would fuck with everybody. Like you get them in that cast, and then start putting the bandages on them. We draw like eyes on the outside of the shell, stupid faces and shit. Of course. So we would always do stuff like that. So
common.
So we wound up doing like, doing his live cast, doing that. And then like, we're ready to get him out of the live cast. And they're like, Mr. Price, can you do this? And they're like, he's kind of limp. He just goes limp. He goes completely limp. And then they start going, oh God, I hope we didn't kill him. So they're trying to get him out of it. And he had literally fallen asleep, but the guys started to think maybe they killed him. It was pretty funny. And like, he had just fallen asleep. He had gotten so relaxed because that stuff gets warm.
Yeah.
And he had literally gotten so relaxed and he just fell asleep.
Think of how many times he had to do something like that.
Oh yeah. It wasn't like his first rodeo, that's for sure. So he was probably just like, okay, I know what this is. I'm gonna take a nap.
Well, I tell you, Nick, every time, and Chad and James know this because Vincent's one of our heroes. Anybody that we've ever had on the show that's even came within, as we say in Kentucky, a country mile of him, we always ask. Courtney Joyner and Jeff Burr and Mick.
Yeah. Jeff Burr, I was going to say Jeff Burr worked with him quite a bit.
Whisper to a Scream, and then they both, and Courtney told the better of the story just because it was a little longer, about going to their house and just begging him to do Whisper to the Scream to the wraparound segments. And basically it wasn't dark, it smelled like bread, it smelled wonderful. He was in there baking, cooking the whole time.
Yeah. And he was a fantastic human being, like just such a presence.
Yeah, I'm curious for both of you. Is there anybody else? And Mick, I'm sorry if I've asked you this question before, but I don't remember asking. Is there anybody else that you guys have gotten a little starstruck about?
I find everybody around me is starstruck by Freddie, and Robert Englund. And I have to tell you, first of all, when I first met Robert, he was on we were doing prep on Nightmare on Elm Street 3. We were still working in the studio and stuff. And like this electrician at the end of the day, like the electricians are leaving the building, and there's this electrician in this jacket,
Right.
Leaving the building. And really, I wasn't familiar with the Nightmare on Elm Street at all. All I had was seen the first and the second, literally in a screening room by the company, right, by New Line Cinema. And so this at the big door, the doors are just like warehouse doors,
Yeah.
big doors. Everybody's walking out through them, and this guy in the jean jacket, he's obviously one of the electricians, is walking out, and somebody comes up to him and says, "Oh, sir, my son's been having trouble with dreams," and I'm overhearing this. I'm having trouble with dreams, and I thought that I wanted to introduce him to you, right? And I was like, "Well, what the fuck is that electrician doing? God damn it, And so the electrician gets down and signs a thing for him, and talks to the kid, and shows him like his piece of like little what I thought was insulation.
Yeah.
And I had no fucking idea what was going on. And finally I went up afterwards, and they left, and I went up and I went, "Who are you?" And he goes, "Oh, hi, I'm Robert," right? And then not long after that, it wound up that we became really good friends. And after a while, eventually I introduced him to his wife, Nancy. So it was an inauspicious beginning to that relationship.
I guess you've told that story 100 times, but you've never told me that you introduced him to his wife.
Yeah, well, there you go. It was actually on Frankenstein, the College Years, my magnum opus. And she was working as my set decorator.
Oh yeah.
And Robert comes by and was hanging out on set, and I introduced him.
Oh, all right. Well, you notice how none of the three of us have asked you any Nightmare on Elm Street questions.
I noticed that.
You're welcome.
I noticed that, bitches.
You're welcome. I mean, I know you guys just getting bombarded with the same. What movie, Nick, do you get asked about the most? I'm assuming, Mick, you get asked about Nightmare the most.
No, actually, Lawrence Bimbinic, the Lawrence Bimbinic story is, which is actually subtitled the Calendar Girls Cop. So that's the one that I get the most questions on.
Nick, what about you? Which one of the movies that you work on that most people are most interested in?
It's really hard to answer that, because I was very fortunate in that a lot of the films I've worked on, still are very relevant to people, and I had no clue that they even would be.
Well, that's what
right. Right.
Well, Mick talked about the same thing. And Mick, do you remember the answer you gave me of all the shit you worked on, Mick? What are you surprised about being asked? Do you remember the answer?
I don't. Which one did I say?
Critters 2.
Critters 2. Yeah, Critters 2. Critters 2 surprised the hell out of me. That there's. Hey, you know what? I've got one for you. I just posted just the other day. I posted something about my wife started to watch House.
Yeah.
With one of my granddaughters, right?
Yeah.
Seriously, this happened. So they're down there and they're watching House, and I walk by and I go, "Oh, I worked on that. I did mechanical effects on that," and I just pulled it up and just sort of put that story out. I couldn't believe, man. I mean, I think like 80 people replied. That's my favorite film, and da da da.
Yeah.
And then I realized and I'm not credited on either one. But
no, I didn't know it till you posted about it. We didn't.
Yeah, I didn't know you worked on house.
Well, here's the weird thing. And Nick can bear this out. Nick, how many things are you really credited on as opposed to how many things you actually did in the 80s?
Oh God, very few.
But
again, like what I think a lot of fans don't really know or understand is that the technology's changed so much. Like when Mick and I were in the thick of it, everything was shot in film, right? So it's cost money to put on a strip of film, you know, it costs money.
Yeah, and literally credits would cost, you know, like today, it seems like the guy who cleaned the bathrooms gets a credit, and you know what? I have no problem with that. Doesn't make any difference to me. But those pages and
wasn't
pages
that the
and
honey
pages
wagon credit on the
yeah, that's the
honey wagon.
Yeah, that's just not the way that it was. I mean, you know, you worked on shit, and I remember that people would say this, you know, I'm actually going to get a credit on this film. Yeah. Right. You know, and you go,
that was a thing. Yeah.
That was a big thing, was, well, I'm going to get a credit on this film. And me, I got a lot of my credits just a little bit later on. I got a lot of my credits on the front of the film, but the reality is that I would work. Let me give you an example of what a day was like. There in the mid 80s, I would go over and work on Ouija board. I remember one day in particular that in the morning I threw an axe on Ouija board, right? And basically that was a wire pull to hit Tawny Katane in the head.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, it's more commonly referred to as witchboard now. So,
well, oh yeah, that's right. When we were shooting, it was called Ouija board, and then it was called witchboard because.
Thank you for not telling me to go fuck myself. I appreciate that.
Hold on, boys. Hold on. Go fuck yourself, Chad. I don't want you to feel left out.
I don't give a shit if it's from you. If it's Mick or Nick,
that explains the short handle.
Well, the thing is what I would do, I would work in the morning. I would pull that axe in the morning, and then I'd drive across town. Chad, go fuck yourself. And then I would go across town, and I would work at. I remember doing a rain gag on the Kindred. At night. You know, and that was a really good day because you bring in like two different dailies. And for some reason back there, I remember that it was like $100 a day. So you could hardly live on that. So what you would do is you would do $100 a day, and a day was whatever they needed for you for. If it was a 1 day deal, they would, you know, you would wind up, I would wind up, you know, axing Tawny Katane, then doing a lightning storm at night. And I remember the way that we used to do the lightning back then was so cool. These days they have a light that makes lightning, right? Yeah. In fact, these days a lot of different lights actually do lightning, right? You know, with LEDs and stuff like that. But back then, the way that you did it is you got a welder, you know, like an old style welder, and you'd get 2 carbon rods, and you go down to Trias Sciences. You get yourself a big box of carbon rods, and you would take and you would
like a giant fucking Jacob's ladder.
That's exactly what it was. Yep. And the thing is, and the weird thing about it is you were always doing it in the rain. Yeah. So you'd be soaked. You'd be in your like slickers, right? You know, in California, in your slickers at night, you would have a welder, a 220 welder down here like this next to you. And then you take these 2 carbon rods, you put them up over your head like a god, right? Shut your eyes and you just you tap the 2 rods together. And it would look like that. And that was your lightning. And
that is insane.
Oh no, absolutely. Don't think it's insane, because it's the fucking coolest thing that you can do in life.
I'm sure it is.
I was waiting for you to actually say, Mick, I wanted you to say what we used to have to do is we'd have to go down into the valley and find a virgin to sacrifice to make the gods give us the lightning. That's the only way that story could have been cooler.
No. That's a different type of gag. But you know, the problem is we always had to import our virgins. It was LA, you know.
Yeah.
They were few and far between.
but I remember I remember I was working. In fact, the very day that I did the thing with Tawny Katane, and that night I was doing the lightning, that I almost got killed by an ambulance that comes up the road, and of course it was in funky condition, like every vehicle that you see that was a car back then that you had to use was really in the worst possible condition. Yeah. Oh, listen, picture cars were the worst, right? And
I was just gonna say picture cars. Bad memories of picture cars already hitting me.
Oh my God. Picture cars were things that like literally sat out in the heat, right? For like 3 months with no maintenance, nothing whatsoever. And all of a sudden they would get rented for 3 or 4 days. And it's like half the time the brakes wouldn't work, or they wouldn't run, or they're like
fucking windows would roll up and the world down.
Fucking windows
whatever.
Oh God, it was
work.
like just the name picture car in my mind just brings to my oh shit. No.
That's funny that was in my head too.
This ambulance comes up and it has, and the actor says no, I can do it. So he's coming up and they rehearse it 4 or 5 times. Nick, tell me if you don't hear the problem with this. So we rehearse it 4 or 5 times. So you're going to stop right here. The camera's right here. Right. And the lightning guy is going to be right here. So we can get the lightning over the back of the guy with the camera. I'm up here like this. And then they go, okay, bring on the rain, bring in the ambulance. And then I'm like, and I'm not, I swear to God, I'm just standing there as I see everything getting completely soaked, including the gravel road that they're on, right? And I'm doing the lightning, and I'm right behind the camera guy, and I kind of like, you know, like math can be pretty slow with me sometimes, you know. But I was calculating stopping distances.
Oh shit!
And then as soon as I put in the water factor, I went, oh fuck,
we got a problem.
I got a problem. And I just kind of like eased myself aside as the car came through and literally rode. The camera guy was, luckily they had him on a dolly, and it pushed that dolly back about 30 feet.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So but at least it wasn't 30 feet through me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what a day was like, you know. I mean, you know,
and you're leaving one important factor out, because even through all of that, I'm sure the last thing said was, "Did you get it?"
Yeah, did you get it? Absolutely. Do we have to shoot it again?
Did you get it? We wrecked the ambulance. We almost killed the cameraman. We almost killed the effects guy. Yeah. But did we get it?
Somebody get the cameraman a new pair of shorts.
But that's the movie.
Yeah, it was. I got to tell you something. There was nothing quite as dangerous or as illegal going down the road as a film company in LA.
Safety third.
Safety third, no matter what.
That I've never heard that before, Nick. I'm stealing it.
That's Mick's, man.
That's my motto,
that's
baby.
Mick's motto.
You've never said that to us before.
No, never.
Well, on this show, let it be known that is Mick's. I got it from Mick.
Hey, gentlemen, I was asking the other two about some questions, but I want to go back to the convention thing, because it's obviously important to me, and I know it's important to Mick, and I'm curious about you also, Nick. Marcus Nispel, and he's a director, and he directed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from the early 2000s and the Friday the 13th remake. Mm-hmm. And he did his first convention this weekend, Chicago Days of the Dead. And we're not friends. We're just social media friends. And I've tried to get him to do the show before, but He wrote a love letter. He did his first convention. He'd been avoiding it for years, and talked about just how fantastic the fans were. Some of the best questions he's ever gotten about his movies, and how he couldn't believe that basically he'd put it off this long and what had been missing. I'm curious to know about, good and bad, how you all feel about doing these movie and film and horror conventions. It's a big question.
I like them a lot. It's funny. When I first started going to conventions, absolutely nobody knew who I was, and it actually became something of a quest in a way to go out and get on enough podcasts and get, get out in groups and speak in front of people and stuff like that until they started to know who I was. And it took quite a while. And then, but there's always something about just seeing people's, because I don't even know that I'm a fan of horror films, but I'm a fan of making horror. This is the horrible thing. I'm 100% sure that I'm not as much of a fan of horror films as I am a fan of making horror films, because I understand them intrinsically. I
understand that.
And the thing is I'll give you a perfect example, because Nick actually saw this. There was a guy that was walking along, and he had this chainsaw from Leatherface, right?
Leatherface, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's walking by, and this thing must have cost like $3,000, right?
Oh my God.
I think he said it was
like to a T replica.
It was a perfect replica of that big one with the, the Saw's family and all the rest on it. Yeah. And he just happens to be walking by, and I go, "Hey man, I can tell you all kinds of stories about that chainsaw." And he turns around, and what was funny is every time he turned around, he just about killed 7 or 8 people.
That saw is so damn big.
That thing is so big, and I went into why we built the saw that way, and what the set and all the rest. And that guy was so excited, and I was like, wow, it's just interesting for me to be able to tell somebody about something that I know, behind the scenes story that nobody else knows. I mean, it was like when I wrote the book about Nightmare on Elm Street 4. The thing is you could go look at the credits, look at all the guys who wrote books about Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, the terrible one, Never Sleep Again, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of a lame way to do it, because all the stories and stuff were kind of from, the DP and the director or the stars on up, right?
Yeah.
They didn't really they didn't really cover the meat of any one given show.
Exactly.
And the thing is I love being able to have somebody come by and I can give you these like meaty things. And for some reason I've worked on so many shows that are still in the zeitgeist, which I didn't even know 7 years ago. I didn't know that anybody remembered any of this shit.
Well,
go ahead, Jim.
I want Nick to answer too, but it was kind of like I've told this story before, but I was in Florida for the first Scarefest that Mick was at, and I was driving home, and Joe's like, "Can you get here? I've got this guy, Mick Strawn. He's going to do the show."
He interrupted my conversation with Robert Englund. Nick, I will tell you the story later off air of how I met your buddy.
So I was like looking up Mick on my phone while my wife was driving, and I'm like, holy crap, I've got to talk to this man. He's done so much that I am just interested in. And I got back in time to talk to Mick and hear his stories, and I was just overwhelmed by the information he was telling me. And then, as we've got to know each other these last, 3-4 years, he's told us stories that I can't repeat, and we won't repeat here. And I'm just sitting there like we were eating tacos, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, I'm just amazed by all these stories. And the other story I will tell is, after talking to Mick and Mick got us going with interviews for our show. And I will always be eternally grateful for everything that he threw our way.
Amen.
But, I got to the point where I was doing what Mick just said. I was actually looking at some of my favorite movies and going to the credits, because these are the stories I like to hear. I like talking to you guys and hearing the background stories of how these movies were made, because I am a true movie geek. I love the inner workings. Like you said, going through all those buffaloes, I'm in my head picturing going, God, I wish I was there doing that. Because I would have just loved to have been there. But the funny story I'll say about that is I was going through the credits and I kept looking for people, and I'm like, oh, I want to talk to this person. And the only way I could track them down for first was through Facebook. And sure enough, every time I find somebody, they were friends with Mick, and I had to keep going to, and I don't know if Mick remembers, I had to keep going to him. I'm like, Mick, I am not trying to steal from your Facebook group. They just keep being your friends. I'm not trying to do this.
Well, I've connected you guys to as many people as possible. And then after a while,
Mick is trying for that record like Kevin Bacon, the 6 degrees.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 6 or 7 degrees of Mick. Yeah.
The 10 degrees of Mick Strawn.
Now we can never pay him back, but don't tell him.
Well, yeah.
Right to his head.
The problem is whereas the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon is like driving on a freeway and picking a set of off ramps. Mine is like going down a dirt road and running and having to jump out and jump into a sketchy house and going, hey, is that guy in here?
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, that's one of the highlights of is doing this show is I actually got to go to a guy who makes props, Michael Moore. I got to go to his studio where he makes the props, and him letting me hold like Star Trek props.
Oh, great. Yeah.
In my hand. And I'm just like, oh, and Michael's just like, yeah, this is what it is. I'm like, prime example, he had 2 big bags.
Okay, you just picked the right person. Now look over Nick. Okay, Nick, tell him.
Tell him what?
Tell him you redid the Star Trek the lighting on the ship.
Oh, on the ship model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, I did restoration work on the Enterprise that was in Star Trek 6.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah. It was a really cool project, but sadly I'm not allowed to show any of it anymore.
Oh, really? You can't even talk about it?
Well, I don't know how much I can talk about it. It ended badly. They still owe me money. They decided they weren't going to pay me. So that's kind of a bitter thing. The one thing I can do is I can show it like portfolio stuff to other potential work, but that's it.
Well, I was thinking of hiring you. So I want to see fucking pictures, dude.
I have them on my phone.
Bonehead budget.
But that's not the first time I've heard of Paramount not necessarily doing what they were supposed to do.
Oh, it's not Paramount. It was sold to a collector, and yeah.
Well, it was like he had that same mentality you guys have of it's just work. It's just, but he had these 2 big bags like you walked into a studio and he had these 2 big bags, and they were massive. And, we went through the tour. He showed me things. I got to play with things. And then we just kind of sit down in the lobby and just talked. I said, I had to go, Mike, what is those bags over there? He goes, oh, those bags. He goes, you ever watch Star Trek and, you look out the window, you see all the stars, right?
Right.
It's like, yeah. He goes, that's the cloth of the stars. And it's the same one they've used from Next Generation on. And I keep it. And and he's going to sell little bits pieces. I'm like, he's like, nobody cares about that. I'm like, dude, open it. I want to see the stuff. I know it's just felt with a little glitter on it or glass shards, but I'm like,
but see, look, it's guys like you that like make doing these conventions worthwhile for us. Like that's the reason. Like all this stuff was just work to us for the longest time. And we're the guys in the background that nobody really necessarily gave a shit about. Right. Now, all of a sudden, with the advent of all of these conventions, like fans go deep, man. They look for us. They look for the guys that did that stuff in the background. They want to know who did it. They want to know the stories, and it's more relevant now than it ever has been. And I'm still actually blown away by it.
It's a recent thing. I mean, it really is. It's like when I started and nobody knew me, and I kept pounding on what the stories were like behind,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that part of you all can be attested. I feel like a lot of the times with movies that are more successful nowadays, the big movie studios, I don't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of stories there because you don't have the guys in the weeds like you. It's mostly computers and green screen and things like that. It's a lot of it's gone.
Well, a good example of it though is it's a legal problem now.
Yeah.
NDAs.
I was going to say most of the things that I have done since 2005 or 2006, and I was still really active from 2006 up to 2013, and those days are a hole in my resume. I mean, I can't talk about all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and the more and more I see about modern films, especially the bigger films, you don't hear any of the background stuff of the bigger films now at all. And it's because you've already
they want to hold on to it because they want to release it
because now they
it's have content to them.
Yeah.
So they'll tell the story the way they want to.
That's right.
Yeah. It's all Robert Downey Jr. talking about how
exactly
like, I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, look at 90% of Disney's all the behind the scenes stuff they do. It's very controlled.
Yeah.
They only allow who they want on camera. So
because it's kind of funny.
You don't get all those guys down in the trenches.
Honestly, I don't think I signed an NDA. I think in 2005 I started signing NDAs. I think the only one that I had signed before that was when I worked on a Michael Jackson video.
Moonwalker Thriller.
No, the big world one. With the Cleopatra and all that.
Black and white, or I'll remember the time.
I'll remember the time.
Yeah.
I'll remember the time. Yeah. The one done by John Singleton.
Yeah. With Lisa Marie.
I literally signed an NDA that was read to me by a lawyer that took him 3 hours.
Oh shit.
In a room where like 10 of us were sitting there like we were fucking kids in school.
And that's 3 hours you'll never get back.
That's the only thing I can think to myself is, you know what?
I'll never get this time back.
I'm getting my day rate on this motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
I don't know what's more entertaining, that or going to a timeshare salesman.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
Absolutely, it's an equal draw all the way down the line.
I'll be honest. I know they did it because it's legal, but 3 hours. Nobody has attention span for 3 straight hours. I've had to teach for 3 straight hours before. Nobody's paying attention. Not even me. And I'm
absolutely. Well, the thing is there's a certain aspect to where the way that the law sets things up doesn't make any sense anymore. I mean, it does to somebody.
Yeah.
It's just not a normal human being, right?
So Nick, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask Nick, if you don't mind going back to the convention thing, can you talk a little bit about your experiences? I mean, I'm assuming you get showered with love and then whatever Mick is showering you with.
That's why I keep my distance.
Yeah, Mick's just over there doing his Silence of the Lamb reenactment.
You keep your distance, but I'm sitting here slightly intrigued, but nevertheless,
no, it's all good. Like, I go to these things. I love doing them. I really do.
Do you really? That's good.
Yeah, I do. It's, sometimes the travel's hard and, and a lot of the pieces and parts of it, like the moving parts of getting there and arranging things is a pain in the ass. But when I'm sitting at that table and I get to talk to people and I realize how much whatever I've done has affected them in a deep way, it's really, I don't know. It's really kind of a bizarre feeling. It's taken me a couple of years to get used to it, but it's really good to know that some of the work I've done has affected people that way. I mean, it interconnects us. I mean, it really does.
Yeah. No, I saw that today, and he just wrote this long dive, and it was very heartfelt as you're reading it, Marcus Nispel, and I thought, yeah, that's it. It's what it's about, because for a while we would go to them and, kind of just as fans, and then getting behind the scenes has been even better. And to build these communities and these families, where else would I have been able to, I mean, he may not consider me, but I mean, I'm pretty sure the Boneheads consider Mick Strawn the fourth Bonehead, kind of in a way. I mean, he's kind of
no offense, Mick. No offense, Mick.
Wow, it's a. So
we'll be hearing from your attorneys.
Am I part of the bone or half of the head?
It depends on the night.
Well, at least he's not being referred to as a dickhead.
All right. I know.
Not on the air.
By the way, I've kept you all on here about an hour and 15 minutes. I just want, before we go, really quick, do you have another one of my favorite character actors of all time? And this isn't a negative story. Did you get to hang out with Darren McGavin?
Other than at Steve's shop, no.
Damn it.
Not on set.
All right. Sorry. Well, way to kill it, Nick.
Wow.
I'm still running off the.
Wow. I will tell you another Dead Heat story, though, if you want.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, God,
read the room, please.
So,
we love Dead Heat.
So there's a couple of interesting things, and they're both things that happen in the very beginning of the movie. The two bank robbers.
Yeah.
So the two bank robber guys, I was charged with making their remains, as it were, and so one of them gets cut out of the movie completely because Treat Williams hits him with a car. Piscopo delivers the line, "Well, you have the right to remain disgusting," right?
Right.
What that shot was supposed to be was they were to cut to this head that I had fabricated on the dummy that they hit. And I'd spent a lot of time making it. In fact, is it here? It's back there. Hang on one second. Let me grab it.
Oh, please.
Hold
please,
on.
please, please,
Well, I know, but he was crippled a few weeks ago. Are you feeling better?
Oh,
right. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, when he was at Scarefest,
he's been crippled for a year.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, I just met him in person the other day.
So this is what's left of him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
All right.
That's cool.
That's what's left of him. I'm trying to preserve him because he was really falling apart. But so that was the head of that first bank robber that Treat Williams runs over with the car. Piscopo kicks the head. There was I had put a resin skull inside to keep his facial features obvious as to who he was. We had a wig and some hair work on him. But what happens is Piscopo kicks his head and it kind of sloshes over. What I had done was I put a weather balloon inside the back of the head to keep the shape.
Yeah.
But it looked like his fucking brains were liquefied. Like the whole back of his head was crushed. So he kicks it over and it kind of sloshes over like a Jello mold. And it just looked fucking disgusting. So they cut it out of the film.
Oh.
They were like, no, that's too gross. So they cut
Release the slushy brain cut.
Yeah. And then the other bank robber that blows himself up with the hand grenade. I mean, you get look, I was glad you got to see him because you see him cover him up. But that we were shooting in the LA County morgue. And I remember the morgue nurse after, I want to say it was Bill Forsh and I were prepping it on the table. We got it all ready to shoot, got it in place. And I walked off set and they're setting the camera up or whatever. And I remember the morgue nurse in there going, "Man, that looks really real." And that looks really disgusting. And I was like, thank you.
Thank you.
When you can get to the morgue nurse, that is saying something.
Right? That was like the biggest compliment I could get. I got the morgue nurse to say it looked good. And she saw it in real life. She didn't see it on camera.
I was going to say, when you can get to the coroner or the morgue people, you're good.
That's right. You're doing good.
Right. Well, why did you hold on to that one particular mask?
Actually, that one made its way back to me through Bill Forsh, who was that guy that worked in the shop. Like he's a wonderful person. And he's been this huge film historian, even since I met him way back in the 80s. And he would grab different things, when we'd go and throw those things away, like Mick and I were talking about, he'd be the guy that would take stuff home. Mm-hmm. And he'd archive it somewhere. I don't know where he was keeping half of it. I know he had the Vincent Price. He had Vincent Price's life cast from House of Wax.
Right. And
then he also kept the one from Dead Heat and then made these life casts of young Vincent and old Vincent together. And it was really cool. but like he was the guy that did that stuff. And like, gosh, I don't know how long ago it was, but it wasn't that long ago. Maybe at the most 10 years ago. Bill shipped that out to me. He said, I have a little surprise package for you. I'm going to send to you. And he sends it to me. It comes in the mail in a baggie. This little guy was in a baggie. And he's like, remember that? And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. That thing is in terrible shape. He's like, well, it did get kicked around a lot. Had a lot of blood on it.
Every once in a while, he sends me a little face.
Yeah.
A little face, and I put magnets on the back and put them on my refrigerator.
Yeah. I have a mini Vincent somewhere here.
Yeah, mini Vincents. Yeah.
Do you ever stop to think you're probably one of the few people who get to say, yeah, I've had a face delivered to me through the mail? That's something that's part of your life. That's not everybody's life. That's part of your life.
Or also, does anybody else have Joe Piscopo's footprint? Nope.
Joe Piscopo was sitting in my VW van one time, and we were having a discussion about it. He goes, wow, you've really kitted this thing out. This is really nice. It was like a 67, with the red, white.
20 minutes later, it's like those guys falling out of it in Fast Times.
Exactly. It's that guy. It was exactly. I had that van, and he would sit and we would talk in between sets and stuff when we were doing 8 heads in a duffel bag.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
And he goes, yeah, he says, I've always wanted these. And I said, well, Jesus Christ, you got enough money, you could get one. And he goes, yeah, but could I be driving this? He said, I couldn't. He also, he says, I'm the guy that smokes I smoke a cigarette. I smoke a cigar in the elevators, and you're the one that points out that I do that all the time. I don't even have to think about it. I cannot drive a car like this.
And then you all smoked weed and listened to the Grateful Dead. All right. Before we wrap, Chad has one last question. Chad.
All right, Nick, I got to ask. And I was debating on, do I talk about this? Do I talk about this? But man, I got to see if you have a Trimmer story.
I really don't. Like, there's not a lot there. I was brought on with Kevin Reeder to do the molds for the 1-to-1s and literally make their heads. That's all there was.
No, really.
And that was it. I wasn't on set with those guys. I wasn't puppeteering any of it. We just made the graboids.
Oh, but still.
Way to kill the room,
awesome.
Chad.
No, but still, it's awesome. He made them.
I know.
Well, that's a pretty popular one for me to sign stuff for,
Yeah, I can imagine.
Having signed Tremor stuff.
It's just such a weird movie that gained so much notoriety. It's one of those. That's definitely one of those ones in the history of,
It's not like it was a huge success when it came out.
Cult classics that Tremors got as much love as it. And I loved it as a kid when I first saw it. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And
it took me some time to love it, but I do love it because of the fact that at the time it was made, it was literally a monster movie that was completely original.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it really was.
Yeah.
So why did it take you so long to love it though?
I thought it was stupid when it came out.
Can I be honest? I didn't care for it when I was younger either. And it was only in the last few years I thought, oh, it's okay. And it's more of just catching little bits and pieces of the direct to video sequels that it's more. Yeah. So I actually haven't went back and rewatched it. And for some odd reason, Reba McEntire drove me crazy in that movie.
What changed it for me was having kids, and trying to expose my kids to some of my work. That was a safer option than
I was 10 years old and loved creature films. Sorry, Mick. Yeah, I loved the movie.
I was going to say my wife loves it, and I've never been. I worked with that director before I worked with Ron, the director, and he gave me the script before he started filming it, and I didn't like the script. I just didn't think it was. And even when I saw the film, the thing is it had Kevin Bacon was great in it.
Yeah.
And I think that very few people in the cast came up to his level. It's almost like he was carrying it. Yeah. He was working on a different movie than everybody else was, because everybody else looked like they were doing a really bad TV of the week.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree with that 100%.
Although I will say
opinion.
that Fred Ward was one of the nicest people.
I was going to say,
Fred
actually,
Ward
like,
is the nicest guy in the
He
world.
was
He
so
really
fucking
is.
cool.
He's a nice guy to be around. But I mean, the acting overall was just kind of marginal.
well, see, and that's what I was like. That was the one thing I was going to disagree with you on. Is I thought Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward playing off one another was excellent. But yeah, I definitely agree. Kevin Bacon was going. Like he was going Oscar worthy performance on a movie about.
There was like this huge up and down. Like who played the survival guy? He was a TV.
Michael
actor.
Gross.
Michael Gross.
Family
He
Ties.
actually owns the whole franchise now.
Michael Gross.
He does.
Oh my God. Michael Gross's acting on the first one was just terrible. Every time he was on screen, I was just like,
oh yeah, no.
Kind of twitching kind of thing, you know.
Really, and now that you know what you know, that's why there's 7 of them, is because Michael wants to produce them, and
everybody
loves Gummer.
Yeah, there you go.
Really wanted to shake that Family Ties role, didn't he?
He must have. Yeah, that's right.
I know. I had no idea he bought the damn franchise.
Yeah, he owns the rights to all of it.
Huh. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And the only other person I'll give props on in Tremors is Victor Wong. I'm sorry. Victor Wong, I actually like Victor Wong's role.
Yeah.
He's great.
But Michael Gross's role in that was it just made me twitch when he came on the screen.
It was not good. But
he was like he was acting by the square foot.
Oh, look at
Uzi for you.
Gummer's license plate.
Awesome. There you go. All right.
So of my merch.
What I'm hearing is that we're all going to Nick Benson's house to look through all of his shit.
There you go.
You can order some of that shit online, you know.
So, before I go, anything you guys want to plug? Nick, do you want to talk about your online store where they can get it, Nick Benson?
Sure. It's not under a domain. It's kind of it's a Square store. So hold on a second. Okay. Let me figure out what it is.
While you're doing that, Mick, is there anything you want to plug you got coming up?
Oh, let's see. I'm going to be in Arizona. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll be in Arizona December 16th.
Yeah.
I'm doing a signings for an LGBTQ. Did I get it right? Okay. Charity.
Yeah.
Charity, and so that's I'm all for that, and that's where I'll be next, and then I've got all kind of. Wow, what is James actually
doing?
Sorry, I was going to say you're going to be at Winter Horror Fest. Is the
Winter Horror Fest?
I looked it up, but I muted myself because I'm that good.
We were watching your lips move, and I was like, "What the hell is he doing?"
He's whispering,
which is more than my wife has ever done. So there you go.
I'm going to be at the Winter. Say it again.
Winter Horror Fest.
Yeah, Winter Horror Fest.
Winter Horror Fest.
You're welcome, by the way.
And come on, thank you very much, sir. And
they need a moderator.
Oh yes, and that was Nick sent that one my way. So
yeah, I was the first. I won't call it celebrity, but I'm the first person she approached, and I'm going to be out of the country, so I couldn't be there.
Where are you going?
I'll be in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Say no more.
Fine.
Say no more.
Is that a movie? Are we on a movie?
No, it's just it's a family holiday thing.
Yeah, all right,
cool. We'll have fun. So, real quick, Nick, how can they get a hold of your store if they want to?
So the store is nick-benson.square.site.
Okay. All right, and you have things that they can sign, things they can buy.
Yeah, things they can buy signed, or they can even get a virtual signing if they want it, or just all kinds of weird things, puzzles, mugs. Burt Gummer's license plate, plus all the same posters I usually bring with me to shows. So,
is Lisa Wilcox doing your marketing for you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, she is.
I'll bet she is. She keeps wanting to do it for me.
She had a big influence in that. That's for sure.
I know. She says, Mick, you should be doing this. You should be doing this, and you should be doing this, and all the time I'm backing away. You know, oh, I have to go see my dog.
Yeah.
Now, Nick, you also have something else coming up. I'm pretty sure you are starting your own podcast with Project Louder.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry if you did. If I'm not allowed to talk about it, I'll cut it out.
No, it's fine. I am. I've thanks to Mick and Mick's connection to TJ and having me on a few times. TJ and I have developed a new podcast that I've actually been kind of working on for the better part of 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
And it's kind of all enveloping of music, film, art. My guests are very different, and what it's about is really about my guests.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I've got anything from a full band to individuals, and we get to the core of who they are and what they're about, what led them down this path. So it's called Hypodermic.
There you go. All right, cool. And they can find Hypodermic on
projectlouder.net.
There you go. Just wanted to give you a quick. And Mick, you're still doing your
Dream Warrior Review.
Got it. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Thank you all so much for coming on the show. Mick, always a pleasure. Nick, a wonderful time. Thank you for giving your time. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you fitting us in right before Thanksgiving.
I think you know that I love everybody on the screen here.
I know.
Well, I'll see you guys.
I'll push stop, and that'll be it. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.
Uh-huh.